Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress seems adamant on the planned protest on Wednesday as the pressure group is calling on the federal government to address the issue of subsidy removal. The Senate has issued an urgent plea requesting that the labor union reconsiders its planned action. Addressing the situation, the Senate expressed that while the legislative body respects NLC's right to protest, it's crucial to weigh this against the potential fallout that could greatly affect citizens' daily lives and livelihoods. Well, will the NLC still go on strike or rather go on its protest despite the address by the president to come on air by 7 p.m. today, particularly as he addresses issues of palliatives? That's the big question we're asking right now. National Chairman Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights, Comrade Rufus Olusegun, joins me on the program. Comrade, thank you for your time. Organized labor walked out on the meeting with the federal government last Friday. According to them, government isn't ready. What do you make of the engagement between government and workers under this administration?
It's my pleasure to be here this evening. And I think this regime, this government welcome the Nigerian population, both the working class and the poor, with orientals of our tax, particularly in the day where the president was sworn. People expected a lot of jubilation, and of course, that the previous government of 8 years led by General Buhari has unleashed serious havoc on the working masses, with a view that with the new government coming in place, Nigeria will be better off. That was on 29th of May. It was the same day the president, without any ambiguous, announced the subsidy removal. And you all know that Nigeria, we practice what they call mono economy. We only have one common product, which is oil, that cuts across other facets of life. For just a few minutes of his address to have told the whole nation that subsidy on fuel has gone. You know what the meaning. You know the meaning. Let me say this: we at the Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights welcome and support the Nigeria Labour Congress protest slated for Wednesday, 2nd of 2023.
I hear you, Comrade Rufus. But talk to us about, as a union leader yourself, what are your expectations, as the president addresses the nation in a few minutes from now?
Please, you see, you can't talk about expectations without understanding the rudiment of what is on the ground. Because if you are looking at the situation of this present government, you are guessing. And you cannot guess in isolation. And of course, it is crystal clear that the so-called palliative cannot sustain our problem. Inevitable. When you are talking about 12 million people will take 8,000 naira for 6 months, you ask me, how do you determine that 12 million people? And of course, how do you arrive at 8,000 naira to take care of enormous issues as the issue of subsidy removal has already damaged within the context of economy? Don't forget, it is the same system. Within a short period, there has been hike in school fees, hike in electricity tariff, and of course, other social amenities of life. Party cannot run because the percentage of people is very low, and of course, the living condition of the working masses have totally gone down.
Comrade Rufus, you seem to be stating the very obvious about what Nigerians are going through. I would like us to focus on what to do differently. For instance, the Senate has expressed concern about the economic implication of the nationwide protest, how it will affect, the daily lives and livelihoods of Nigerians. Not to talk about Downing tools, for instance. What do we do right now? How should unions, address this matter without making life more difficult for Nigerians?
Well, the first thing is that don't forget there was a committee set up by government to see how essentially government can parley with labor. And of course, the last meeting, government representatives didn't come to that meeting. It shows clearly government is not serious to see this problem an end to this legal crisis. And of course, as it's well now, the first thing is that government have to reverse that subsidy removal, because we cannot, even in America, people do subsidize some of their products, some of their utilities, social amenities for people to survive. So government must not, that government must resist that decision of saying that subsidy removal has gone. Two, the school government must invest in education. In the last 1 year, according to the WHO, 13% of Nigerian children are out of school as at last year. With this situation, government must invest in education. Where government is saying that they don't have business in education, they don't have business in governance, it cannot help the situation. So the first thing government must do is to that palliative. It is not the masses that cause the problem. So in the first instance, government must rescind that decision that subsidy is gone. Secondly, government must invest in education. Thirdly, the issue of privatization of electricity tariff, government must reserve it. And all this by right torrent of attacks on the working masses. Don't forget, people have low salary income, and of course, there is low purchasing power now. Government must invest and stabilize the economy. The issue of this exchange rate that have gone up must come down, which means government must invest in industrialization, which government presently they don't care about.
I hear you, comrade. I agree with you to the extent of education, but when you talk about reversing the removal of fuel subsidy, I'm sure you're aware that the subsidy regime ended with the Petroleum Industry Act, which became law last year. But that's our time, and I want to say a big thank you for joining us in this conversation. National Chairman, Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights, Comrade Rufus Olusegun.